Managing upwards. What is it? Why do you need it? And how can you implement it? Some years ago, I was working with a small company and I was talking to the CEO about a particular decision that he had to make. And I was trying to get him to go one way, and he clearly wanted to go the other way. I'd done some pre work with some other members of his team to see what their opinion was. And halfway through this conversation, he stopped me and he said, "Pete, I don't appreciate you trying to influence me." And this really shocked me because I'd never heard that before. Now, you're a CEO, you may have to manage people and influence people who may have more power than you, for example, an investor or a client. Or you may be in a situation as a CEO where there's people trying to influence you and you have more power in that relationship too. It's important to understand what managing upwards is and how it can be helpful and when it can be a problem. So let's get into that. So, what is managing upwards? Well, there's the positive side and then there's the negative side. I can talk about the positive side first. Definition of managing up would be to improve communications to help solve problems and to set expectations and to understand what each other's paradigms are. In that sense, managing communication for the better outcome, creating a win-win situation, which you might want to do with investors or clients. And your staff might want to do that with you. Now, on the negative side, it can be interpreted as manipulation. So, somebody trying to say things to force you to do something which might be for your detriment and for their benefit. That's one interpretation of managing upwards. So that's what managing upwards is. Now, in a traditional business organization, it's a structured pyramid where the boss would give orders to their subordinates and so on down the chain, and reports and other things would perhaps flow upwards for review. The opportunity for managing upwards was very, very limited, but a modern environment is very different. A modern environment is dealing with a lot more complexity, and it's expected that data will come from the bottom of the organization, and therefore it's important that the data flows into the organization and in a way is helping to shape the organization. Rather than it being led from the top, it's led largely by data, sales, customers, marketing, and things that happen at the bottom of the organization. So it's very important that managing upward is interpreted in a positive sense, because it's the shaping of the company based on data which is going to be part of its success, rather than one person at the top setting the strategy and giving out the orders. So how do you manage upwards effectively? Well, step one is to understand the goals of your audience. Similar to solution selling, your customer is your manager or your client or your investor. Understanding what their goals are so that you can respond accordingly. Secondly is matching communication styles. Simple things like using eye contact in a similar manner, posturing in a similar way, the cadence of the conversation, those types of things help to create the oil in the communication. Number three, being proactive, arriving at the issues and problems ahead of time and having solutions ready to go. One of my clients says, I like to hear one problem and two solutions. It gives him a chance to sort of understand what options there are ahead of him. And building trust, so being on time, meeting deadlines, producing high quality work. These things build trust and give your manager or your client some faith. Demonstrating value, helping to solve problems, be aware of the problems that are there and offering solutions. Being there and supporting during high pressure situations or when key decisions need to be made. Setting boundaries and expectations, being clear and realistic about what can be done and meeting those deadlines. And building mutual respect, having respect for their position of authority if they're an investor or a client, being respectful towards that, and also just sharing a good language of respect between the two of you. So there's 7 tips for how to build rapport and communicate better with the goal of managing upwards. Well, where can this go wrong, and where in fact did I go wrong when I had that situation with my client who was the CEO of the company? Well, I believe in reflection, I pushed a little bit too hard on my opinion on the direction to go without first understanding the objectives and goals that he had in mind. Now, maybe I would excuse myself partly by him not communicating well what those goals were, but perhaps I should have clarified with better questions rather than driving through with my ideas. I think the second mistake, which was probably even more critical, was that I attempt to create a coalition of support within his executive team, and that wasn't seen as positive. That was seen as manipulative and trying to take advantage of the coalition and playing politics. So two mistakes that I definitely believe I made. There probably is many others, as there always is with communication. But I think if you go back to those 7 principles, you can't go too far wrong. So what about if you're the CEO and you have your subordinates and they're attempting to manage upwards? I suggest that's encouraged. And how is it encouraged? Well, I think you respond to them by saying, well, I appreciate the initiative. I think this is helpful. I want to work with you. I want to collaborate with you, but listening without defensiveness. And because you may be hearing things that are contrary to your belief or where you want to take the company. So you need to be non-defensive and constructive. Objectively evaluate the merit of their proposal. So I always like this saying of managing, going easy on the person and harder on the issues. So separate your conversation into 2 pieces, the person and the issue that's being discussed. It may come to the point that ultimately it's your decision to make. And it's important to state that clearly. Yes, I appreciate your input. Ultimately, that decision is mine. I'm not going to go that way. And you can close the case fairly smoothly and easily, and encourage a collaboration. So have a collaborative approach to your conversations with your team and address overreach tactfully. For example, you might want to say, I appreciate your input. In this case, perhaps you overreached. This is not your realm. I'll consider your input, but ultimately I'll make that decision without you in this case. And finally, to use that opportunity to provide feedback on development opportunities. I appreciate the work that you've done. You're obviously thinking strategically. Perhaps when you present this next time, start with the problem or start with the top level view and drill down. This is a common problem I have, especially with engineers. They start effectively from the bottom up, communicating top down. And what to do if somebody believes that managing upwards is fundamentally a bad thing? Well, sometimes it can come down to just the words and understanding what those words mean. And here, a good solution is to understand clearly what you would be arguing about. Are those words managing upwards interpreted the same way? What is the definition of managing upwards to you and the other person you're dealing with? They may have a completely different view. They may see it as manipulation and you may see it as collaboration. And then you can change the words. You don't have to be wedded to the words managing upwards. We can call collaborative problem solving or any number of other ways we want to talk about it. Doesn't have to be tied to words that may have a negative connotation. So in summary, managing upwards is a very helpful tool when you need to problem solve, collaborate in a modern company environment where data and innovation and input comes from the bottom and flows upwards. It's really important to be aware of managing upwards and to use it effectively to help drive better decision making. If it's done well and appreciated by management, it's very effective for company growth and hitting strategic goals. If you click the link in the description, it will take you to a document where I've detailed out the tips that I articulated in this video. But if you have any questions, please put them in the description. We always read comments and we're always looking for feedback on our videos or any future ideas that you have. Now, if you want to see more videos like this, click the like button, subscribe, and turn on all notifications. I hope that helps, and thanks for watching.